Hey, what up, y'all? IntraVenus here, back with another episode of P.O.L. Gamer View. Today we're going to do part 4 of PSP GEMS, and we're going to take a look at 5 first-person shooters on the Sony Playstation Portable. Now, a lot of people tend to ask, are there first-person shooters on the PlayStation Portable? How many PlayStation Portable first-person shooters there are? And how do you control first-person shooters on the PlayStation Portable? Well, to answer your questions in short, there are about 10 first-person shooters on the PlayStation Portable. They control very well without 2 analog sticks, and they do exist. So today we're going to take a look at 5, and the first one we're going to look at here is Medal of Honor Heroes. So I'm doing it a little bit different this time, and I'd like to know from you, the viewer, if you like this version or my previous style of doing PSP GEMS. Today I'm not going to be overlaid over your gameplay and talking over it that way. Instead, I'm going to give you a full screen of gameplay, and you will hear some voiceover from me as you're seeing gameplay. It gives you a little more of an immersive experience on the game, plus it's easier for me to talk and be informative without stuttering and all this mumbo jumbo, because it's hard to talk and play at the same time. So let's go ahead and get into Medal of Honor Heroes.
Good morning, Captain. I'm Colonel Hargrove from the Office of Strategic Services. I'll get right to the point. As you know, the OSS was formed 2 years ago by presidential order to serve as the intelligence branch of the United States military. Our job is anything and everything. Espionage, sabotage.
Medal of Honor Heroes is a first-person shooter video game developed by Canadian studio Team Fusion for the PSP, and it's the 9th installment in the Medal of Honor series. It was released on October 20th of 2006 in North America. PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 ports were also planned, but they were canceled. All right, y'all. So what do you think about Medal of Honor, the first one, Medal of Honor Heroes for the PSP? The graphics are a little scratchy, but it plays really well, and it's a really good game. I like the controls for the most part. Now, coming up next, we're going to go ahead and move on to Coded Arms. Now, Coded Arms is, I believe, one of the first first-person shooters that came out for the PSP, and I think it gets a hard rep. It's actually a really good game. I like it a lot. Let's go ahead and check out some gameplay. Coded Arms is a first-person shooter video game that was developed and published by Konami for the PlayStation Portable handheld in 2005. It was only for the PSP and no other consoles. This game basically has you running around in a Matrix style of gameplay in a first-person scenario where you are jacked in, so to speak. You are hacked into a computer, sort of like the way they get into the Matrix. And you are fighting off viruses, so to speak. That's the way that I took it anyways. Alright, so that was Coded Arms. What do you think about that game? I find the graphics to be surprisingly decent and the controls were very good. I actually like that game more than I ever expected to. So for the third game, we are going ahead and we're choosing a PSP Mini. Now back in the day, the PlayStation Store on the Sony Playstation Portable had small games, indie titles for cheap prices, and they were usually a little shorter or a little less refined than the full titles that you get on the PSP. But one of those games was N.O.V.A. And N.O.V.A is a first-person shooter that is basically Halo on the PlayStation Portable. Let's check out some gameplay.
We must investigate the warehouse deck upstairs. Careful, the bay door is malfunctioning. Get to the nearest exit.
N.O.V.A stands for Near Orbit Vanguard Alliance, and it's an action-adventure video game in the first-person perspective for the iPad and Apple products made for Apple and Gameloft. It was released in December 17, 2009, and then it was released in 2010 for the Sony Playstation Portable. This game was on a lot of devices, including the PS3, Android devices, and WebOS, including something called BATA, and I don't know what BATA is. This is a really fun game. It's simplistic but challenging. The controls are spot on, and it really does remind me of Halo on the PlayStation Portable.
Captain Warden, this is General Korolev. We've seen enough. You are now authorized to blow this ship to Kingdom Come. You'll find self-destruct codes inside the computer security deck.
I see you found a shotgun. It performs well at close range, but is poor. It appears the door to the central computer room is locked. I'll guide you to a vulnerable computer to hack.
Hey, brother. There's an ammo crate near me. It's too late for me. Hack the crate, get some ammo.
All right, so what did y'all think about N.O.V.A? Did you have that game? I remember back when the minis were first popping off and the PlayStation Portable was too, and I was on the search for a first-person shooter because all my friends had consoles. I didn't have a full-blown home console. All I had was my PSP, and I wanted to get in this first-person shooter action that was popping up on the PS2 and PS3, you know what I'm saying? So I found N.O.V.A, and I think a lot of people did this. And what we got was Halo on the PSP, pretty much. And you'll see in the gameplay that there is scenes that should have more sound effects. It seems like it's a little lacking in full development, but man, it's a blast. And it took us somewhere not many games could. Next up, we're going to go ahead and take a look at Ghost in the Shell. This is a PSP game as well. It's first-person shooter, and it's based on the anime and manga series. Now, Ghost in the Shell has you controlling a robot as well as your own character. You play as a female secret agent of sorts, and you can jump between you and the robot. You can combine yourself with the robot, or you can separate and have your robot run around as like a second player to help you out, taking out some of the AI. Let's check out some footage. Now, the full title of this game is Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex. It was released in Japan as Kokaku Kidotai Standalone Complex, Domain of the Hunters. It's a first-person shooter video game based on the cyberpunk anime series Ghost in the Shell.
When you consider the kind of demands that terrorists make these days, demanding an apology from a politician is really awfully sweet.
Maybe, but what they're doing is outrageous.
Does this mean they were on close terms with Hiruma?
And why did they feel the need to kidnap a retired old man at this point? It just doesn't fit.
I suppose all we can do is ask Hiruma himself how big a psychological impact this man's kidnapping has had on him.
Knowing that geezer, he'll probably just say, I never met the man.
If you do anything to draw attention, you might compromise the mayor's safety and place his life in jeopardy. Bear that in mind while you're conducting.
This only came out on the Sony PlayStation Portable, and I found it to be actually a really fun game, and it gets a bad rep as well. I remember back in the day going to GameStop or whatever it was called back in the day, maybe EB Games, and asking them what kind of first-person shooters are available on the PlayStation Portable. Do you have any? And they would always bring up the Ghost in the Shell standalone complex game, but then they would give it a caveat saying, it's not that great though, I would suggest something else. And that was a big disappointment for me back in the day in the PlayStation Portable's heyday. A lot of the people that were working at these video game stores were playing console games, and they didn't have a whole lot of heart, respect, nor knowledge for the Sony PlayStation Portable and its amazing and vast collection of games. So, anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed seeing that. I highly suggest you go ahead and pick up Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. Now, for our final game today, we're going to take a look at Star Wars Battlefront 2. Not many people realize that in Star Wars Battlefront 2, not Elite Squadron, not Renegade Squadron, just 2, if you go in the options mode when you're playing the game, you can switch to first-person view and you can see the front of your weapon and everything. It becomes a full-blown first-person shooter, and I think a lot of people who played the game back in the day on the PlayStation Portable might not have even noticed that was in the options, at least not for playing it for a while, and then after a while they're like, oh my god, I could do this? And it blew me away. It still does. The graphics are a little blocky. You know, it was the first Battlefront game on the PlayStation Portable, and the graphics did get better in in Renegade Squadron and in Elite Squadron, but this is the way to play it in my opinion. I really liked the first person mode in Star Wars Battlefront 2. Let's check out some footage. Star Wars Battlefront 2 was a multiplayer game, and a really good one at that, with an initial release date of October 31st, 2005. This also came out on Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 2, and the Xbox. Of all the Star Wars Battlefront games, I think this one hits me in the feels the most. I hope you really enjoyed seeing footage for that game and the rest of these games. I hope you stick around for more, and we're going to do number 5 on great game collections. I have 6 games picked out. They're all multi-game collections like EA Replay and Capcom Collection, reloaded and remixed. So thanks so much for sticking around to the end of the episode. Let me know if you like this format better or worse, or if you even care if I'm there overlapped over the screen talking about the game or not. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out parts 1 through 3 of PSP Gems. And until then, I'll catch you all in the next episode. Peace.
Yo, tell me what you need. Everybody's caught up in material butter, cause we're caught up in the greed. No food, think your fortune and beg at your doorstep. Can't you spare by the heat? That's the thing, you'd rather get a PC, so yo, tell me what you need. Well, it's not with the trying to sell you on the TV, dropping it down.